Welcome to the Financial Technology Report, a leading information source on financial technology companies and solutions. Today, we speak with Henrique Weave, co-founder and CEO of Pagaleve, a pioneering fintech in Brazil's buy now, pay later market. Founded in 2021, Pagaleve allows consumers to split purchases through Pix in up to 4 interest-free biweekly installments or 12 monthly installments with interest without relying on credit cards. For retailers, the platform drives higher conversion rates, larger average purchases, and reduced payment risk. Henrique previously held roles at Coca-Cola, McKinsey, and Uber, where he served as general manager before becoming CEO of OYO Brazil. Pagaleve is backed by Salesforce Ventures, Banco do Brasil, and Entrée Capital, and today it serves more than 9,000 retailers across Brazil. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you liked the episode, click to follow. Henrique, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's a delight to be with you.
Thanks for the invite, RJ.
So as I was refreshing on your background, very interesting, your career path. You started out at Coca-Cola, had a good stint at McKinsey, and then more went into operations and, corporate executive or company executive roles. What prompted you to found Pagaleve?
So the first 10 years of my career, as you mentioned, were more sort of traditional, right? Then when I entered the startup world at Uber, so I was director for Uber here in Brazil, I think that was sort of the spark that it was interesting to scale new business, to create new things. And also that Brazil was huge potential for launching new ideas and for growing new businesses, right? So I think Uber was what got me to start thinking about entrepreneurship, right? Then after Uber, I spent about 3 years at Uber. Then I was hired to be CEO for OYO Hotels, OYO, the hospitality company from India. So I also launched from scratch. OYO became the biggest hotel chain in Brazil with over 600 hotels. So it was also a pretty interesting experience. And then after OYO, then I founded Pagaleve along with my co-founder, Mike. So that was where the idea came from.
But it's a pretty unique one. I mean, you're entering the fintech space coming from hotels and before that, Uber. So why pick that specific technology?
It was very related to the opportunity, right? To what we have assessed that was a big gap in the market. So my co-founder, Mike, his experience is very rooted on finance technology. Before Pagaleve, he was the founding CTO for Zip, the big buy now pay later from Australia that operates globally. So he brought the experience from the payments world and a lot of expertise in technology. So back in 2020, me and Mike and a group of other people started to study the market in Brazil. And we noticed some interesting things about the market, right? So what we saw was that Brazilians overall were very used to pay for pretty much anything in installments. So installments was something cultural. It's different from the US and from Europe, in which buy now pay later is something new from this decade, right? In Brazil, I'm 42 years old. Since I was a child, I would go to the shopping mall and see communications about payments of anything in installments. So you'd see a Snickers in the store and it would be like the price already in installments. So very cultural. But up until when Pagaleve launched, the only scalable way for people to pay in installments was by using a credit card, right? So we got that understanding and we saw that there was an enormous opportunity for us to sort of try and disrupt an industry that was sort of stopped in time and with only one viable option for people to pay. So the thesis that we started to dive deeper was that there would be enormous opportunity to have a scalable way for people to pay in installments outside credit card rails.
It seems that, if I were just an investor looking at tech companies to back, particularly in Brazil or Latin America, your background combined with your co-founder's background looks very attractive. Curious about your journey with investors. Have you sought out getting investor banking in a material way at the start, or were you kind of a little bit more gradual in your approach to capital?
We were very fortunate to have really awesome investors since the beginning. So on the seed round, we were invested by a fund from Australia called OYO Ventures. And after that, we got also some really, really good investors, very big names from Founder Collective to Entrée Capital. Salesforce Ventures also invest on us. Banco do Brasil, which is one of the biggest banks here in Brazil. So I think at the end, one thing leads to another because good investors also give endorsement to other good investors to come on board. And from my experience in Pagaleve, having those guys along with us helped a lot. The cash was just a small part of it. I think the bulk of the support is on actual ideas and challenges and contributions to the business, right? So definitely we were very fortunate on the quality of investors that we brought in with Pagaleve. We have done 4 funding rounds so far. But I mean, the beginning, the seed round was important because that specific fund, OYO Ventures, helped us to get to other investors that also contributed a lot for Pagaleve.
Has the market adoption met your expectations? Like as you were kind of drafting out your go-to-market in the early stages, given that it was already socially acceptable to pay in installments, did your adoption and ramp match what you expected?
For sure. Actually, it surpassed our expectations. We were overwhelmed in the beginning because our product is a payment ecosystem, right? So we have 2 clients. We have the merchants, like the B2B side, and we have the consumers on the other side. We need both to work in order for this to function, right? There's a slight similarity with Uber, completely different industry, but in Uber, you had the drivers and the riders. Here we have the merchants and the consumers, and we need both to be very well connected and growing at a similar pace for everything to stand in place. The very first constituent to need to be right is the merchant. So they need to offer Pagaleve so that people can buy. So our first big merchant was Reserva. Reserva is one of the biggest and the coolest apparel brands in Brazil. They signed with us even before we started operating, and that was really important for us. And then after that, all of the other big guys came on board. So today we have Grupo Soma, Farm, AliExpress, Temu, you name it. I think more than 10,000 retailers. But that retailer adoption was really surprising to us. And then when we started to study the results that they had with Pagaleve, then it became evident on the value proposition. So at the end of the month, we make the retailers make more money with Pagaleve than without Pagaleve. And it's easy for them to prove, to test, and to see the results on the month, right? So Pagaleve is very easy to connect, and then they can quickly figure out that there's a positive financial outcome for them. So that's why it's so compelling from them to insert Pagaleve in their businesses. And then on the consumer side, that came as a result of being present in so many retailers. So now we've been a big amount of consumers every month. So at this point, more than 100,000 new consumers per month, and this is scaling a lot. So when you look at Pagaleve overall results, we are 6 times higher than we were in the same period last year. So really, really huge growth. And there's a clear network effect, right? Because every time we bring one additional merchant to Pagaleve, there's a compound effect because this new merchant also comes with new consumers, which will shop not only in that specific retailer, but also in other retailers. And everybody wins, right? So from the current set of retailers we have, benefit from each additional retailer that I bring. So it's not competition, it's complementary to what they already have as a business, right? So there's a big network effect playing out in the Pagaleve ecosystem.
It sounds like you have a first mover advantage. I'm curious if there were any direct competitors when you entered the market, or if you already kind of foresaw this, like there's no other major player in BNPL. We need to come in now and capture market.
It's hard to do what we do because you need both ends, the consumer and the retailer. There were a couple of competitors, including big names like Sazel. It's like a global player that tried to come to Brazil. So there were several, like Adi from Colombia. So 4 or 5 companies that tried. They were not able to compete with us, and then they left the market. Not only because of that. I mean, overall, there are a lot of market dynamics, but we were very fortunate to be able to be in the leading end of the spectrum of players in the buy now pay later space. So I don't know if it's a winner takes all or first mover advantage, but for sure there are network effects playing out in the market.
And do you think in part it was your strategy or solution, the specific kind of offering or usability? What do you think it was that enabled you to kind of capture this position?
I think that it's a combination of things, RJ. So first, the consumer experience that we have is really awesome. So if you time the amount of seconds it takes for you to buy with a credit card in any e-commerce in Brazil, just a regular credit card. So you open your wallet, you type in the 16 numbers plus, and then you time how much time it takes for you to buy with Pagaleve. It's pretty much the same amount of time. So it's a really, really seamless experience. You don't need to send a selfie. You don't need to send a picture of your documents like with other solutions. So the fact that the experience is so seamless helps to bring people that are not desperate for paying for credit or anything like that. So people that just buy with us because it's easy, because it's everywhere. So the customer experience is definitely one. Second, the risk practice. I mean, the underwriting mechanism for Pagaleve is also unique. When you talk about risk and credit, there's a metric in the credit world that's called KS. The KS is what any lender, any bank in the world looks as one of the primary metrics to understand the predictive power of your underwriting algorithms, right? Normally, if you look at a bank, the KS for new consumers, which is what matters. So KS for new consumers in any given bank in Brazil is between 20 and 25%, right? The higher, the better, 20, 25%. Our KS is close to 40%, which means that we are almost twice as effective as a big bank or as any lender to underwrite for a new user that tries to buy with us, right? So we are AI native. So we built the underwriting algorithms in AI, and we have access to the SKU level data from purchase. So we know even if RJ Lumba is buying a white sneakers at this specific store, that's all that is taken into account. So we have more than 100 variables that are analyzed in real time for the algorithms to decide if you're going to be approved or not for that specific purchase, right? So risk and underwriting is definitely a big advantage that we have, right? That's the second one. Third one is B2B relationship and B2B capabilities. I mean, we have a CPG-like type of commercial practices. And the fourth one is overall technology, right? I mean, Mike brought a kind of a world-class type of approach to technology. Everything was built on microservices. So really high-end technology that supports sort of an operation that would be 10 times higher than what we have in any given point of time. Those are some of the biggest advantages and the big things that we bring to the table when we compare ourselves to other companies.
And in addition, you have strong leadership, and to be able to build an organization and a highly effective team, you need certain skills, you need certain experience. I'm curious, when you take a look at your career over the years, starting at Coca-Cola, presumably you learned a lot of things, especially with your time at Uber, playing in these key leadership roles. What can you tell us about the key aspects to leading an effective organization and what you keep top of mind in your position as CEO?
There's a bit of everything from each of my experiences and from Mike's experiences. So from Coca-Cola, for example, I think I brought a lot of the consumer view on how people will feel things. One of the things that you should say a lot in Coca-Cola is that everything communicates. So any data points we have with consumers, any opportunity to talk to them will be remembered by consumers. So everything needs to be very well connected. So for example, in Pagaleve, the consumer relationship process is all done in-house. We don't outsource that to agencies. So we do 100% of the customer support. And that's useful because we have a weekly meeting in which we hear every consumer agent about everything that the person has discussed. So that gives us a lot of ideas and things. So to be very consumer centric. So the consumer centricity was definitely one thing that I got very strongly from Coca-Cola. From Uber, I think that this mentality of having a very healthy marketplace, like a very healthy balance between the two sides, B2B and B2C, I think that was an important thing. But I think one thing overall that I got from pretty much all places, including McKinsey, was on the importance of building a really good team and with a really good culture. Like, for example, rules like no space for brilliant assholes, being very tough when it comes for deviations of culture. I think this is really important. So we have created a culture of high performance, high demand, of course, but really high collaboration across areas, right? So I think this is very important. If you want to create good results, you have to have a culture of psychological safety, openness, and space for people to share with each other. So I think the culture thing only started to be evident to me, I think, after the second half of my career, on how important it was. I think on the beginning, when I was more younger, at times it felt as just something that was there, but then after some time, it became really clear to me on how important it was to build a really solid culture for the companies I worked with.
I'm curious what your success rate has been in hiring for a key leadership spot, whether that's at the C level or, slightly below the C level. But what do you view as your success rate in having the right candidate for the long term?
Hiring stuff, right, is not easy. I mean, you need to spend time, and I think you need to open up a lot your top of the funnel and really feel the candidate. I think one thing that is really important, at least for the C level, for the top level, is to hire people that will be not only effective and sufficient for the near term, but also people that you can see functioning in the long term, the next 5 years or so, 8 years, 10 years, right? Sometimes it feels that they are too much for what we need. So it will be more expensive. Maybe they will have high expectations than what you need to do right now. But especially for the key leaders, you need to have someone that's stronger than the short-term needs, right? At least in the very beginning, you not have the cash to pay them what the value is. So I think the way to offset for that is to use equity, right? To use ESOPs, so that they are very aligned with you on the long-term vision. So if the company takes off big time, they will also take off big time financially, right? So I think that is the way, at least with the initial key hires, right? And also to be able to spend time and sell the dream, sell the vision, right? I still spend a significant amount of time hiring and interviewing and talking to people. It's still tough. It's never easy, never. I mean, now I think people know Pagaleve, it's a well-known company. It's still tough to be able to show your view and to select well. People are hard to read, right? So you need a couple of interactions, sometimes in-person interactions to be able to actually grasp what the person is like.
Last two questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
I had one boss when I worked at Coca-Cola that she was really inspirational, and she was able to make me take decisions thinking on long term, thinking on what we want for the future, not only to resolve things in the short term, right? So when I joined McKinsey after Coca-Cola, I think several of the concepts that I get from that supervisor remained with me on thinking strategically, like clear of emotions, and really become sort of a good strategic thinker. I think strategic thinking and business acumen, some stuff are sort of innate we have, but a lot you develop. So you can develop an approach to be more strategic on your think and to problem solve. Like this approach to problem solving and to figuring out answers, I think is something that I got a lot from this person. And I think this is still really an inspirational person that I remember a lot from that time.
Last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
I like to develop people on what I know how to do best, which is working with startups and scaling businesses. So I think this is something that I try to do as most as I can. I was very happy that 6 months ago, I was selected as an Endeavor entrepreneur. I don't know if you know, Endeavor is a very inspiring organization. So me and Mike were selected. It's a big selection process, and that we were very happy because with Endeavor, we are able to do this with a framework. So there's also people that ask for help and we continue to support. But then with Endeavor, we can do this with a nice format, and we channel the energy to do this in a way that has more and more impact on the community on Brazil.
Excellent. Well, Henrique, I want to thank you again for taking the time. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, RJ. It was a pleasure.